by John Kruzel, comes from PolitiFact Poynter US. And something interesting regarding John is that he worked for 3 presidential debates as a producer for ABC News before doing fact-checking. So I think you have a lot of experience and also insights in what happens there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you about why fact-checking matters. I know I'm the only thing standing between you and dinner and drinks, so I will not go over my time. I figured we'd start out with a little quiz, and my assistant will help me hand out prizes to brave contestants who volunteer and get the answer right. So let's put your skills to the test as fact-checkers and see if you can spot misinformation. Now, Angie is not allowed to answer this one. Let's get somebody to raise their hand who thinks yeah. You think it's fake? Okay, let's see. It is fake. It started in 2011. It's been popping up in the aftermath of major storms ever since. And as your prize... Deliver the prize now? Yeah, absolutely. Give it a toss. It's a squishy PolitiFact truthometer, so it's not going to hurt if you just wing it across the room, no problem. Next question. You may recognize this young woman. It's Emma Gonzalez. She is a survivor of the Parkland, Florida school shooting, and she now advocates for tougher gun laws in the United States. On the left is a photo of her ripping up the United States Constitution. On the right, a photograph of her ripping up a target that you would see at a gun range. Now, I'm going to give you a clue here. One of these photographs is fake. So the question for you is it on the left or the right? Do you want to take a guess? The left. Okay. You're correct. Whoop. Whoa. Oh, no. Oop. We okay? Let's see. Go back. Back. Okay. Whoop. Okay. You got your prize. Okay, good job. All right, final question. How many people contracted Ebola within the United States and died as a result? I'm going to go through the answers. A, 14, B, 15, C, 0. Do we have any volunteers to guess? 0? Oh, this is a good debate. Okay. It is 0. She got it first. You can share it. 0 people contracted Ebola within the United States. Some people contracted it outside the United States, brought it into the United States, sadly died. 2 nurses in Texas contracted it within the United States, but both survived. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about misinformation. As our caveman politician here reminds us, misinformation has been around forever, since the dawn of man. He also reminds us that politicians have a rich history in trafficking in misinformation. What's new about the social media age is just how far and fast it can spread. So this is the roadmap slide. I'm going to be referring back to this. It's got 3 guiding questions here. The first is, everyone knows politicians stretch the truth. Who cares? Second is, what are journalists doing about it? And the third is, does fact-checking work? So on this question of who cares, who should care about misinformation and combating it, at PolitiFact we like to say facts matter. This goes to the heart of our mission, which is really twofold. It's to hold politicians accountable and to promote accuracy. So I'm going to show you a couple examples that speak to that 2-part mission. Here is holding politicians accountable. You may recognize this gentleman. His name is Sean Spicer. He was President Donald Trump's first White House press secretary. Here he is addressing the press for the first time ever in the Trump administration.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Okay, it's a few chuckles. You guys are familiar with this. For fact checkers, this is what you might consider low-hanging fruit. Okay, this was very easy to debunk. All you had to do was pull up a photo of the Obama inaugural crowd, compare it to the Trump crowd. As you can see, photo on the left has a whole lot more people than the photo on the right. We rated this pants on fire. That is our harshest rating. It comes from the American expression, liar, liar, pants on fire. So this is an example of letting politicians know, look, what you say is going to be scrutinized. It's going to be put under the microscope. It's about holding politicians accountable. This next one is about promoting accuracy in the political space. This is a different sort of misinformation. This one has real repercussions for public health. It has to do with the relationship between childhood vaccinations and preventable diseases. And spoiler alert, there is not a relationship, but here's former presidential candidate Michelle Bachmann discussing it here.
Well, I will tell you that I had a mother last night come up to me here in Tampa, Florida, after the debate. She told me that her little daughter took that vaccine, that injection, and she suffered from mental retardation thereafter.
Okay, no, that didn't happen. Study after study shows that there is no link between the two. And health experts will tell you gaps in vaccinations lead to an uptick in preventable diseases. So who cares that politicians stretch the truth? Well, we think anybody who cares about the health of democracy should care. Anybody who cares about holding politicians accountable and about promoting accurate information so that citizens can make properly informed judgments about self-governance. What are journalists doing about it? Well, for a long time, there was no formal answer to political misinformation among journalists. There was a kind of what you might call false balance. So take an example of political coverage of a political debate. Reporter under deadline might write something like, candidate A says something's true. On the other hand, candidate B says something's false. And it was left to the reader to really sort out what's true and what's false. The problem here is obvious, right? Most readers don't come to a story armed with sufficient background information or the time to do the research to figure out, okay, which of these two competing claims is true and which one's not. So, in response to false balance journalism, an alternative emerged in the mid-2000s, fact-checking. And the idea was pretty simple. It was basically, if political journalists can strip away the spin and the political deception, readers will have a better chance to make informed judgments about the issues that really matter. The first to come along was factcheck.org, followed by us in 2007, PolitiFact, followed shortly thereafter by the Washington Post. I'm going to tell you a little bit about PolitiFact. We've got 11 reporters and editors. We're independent journalists, so we're not affiliated with any political party or interest group. In our 11-year existence, we've done about 14,000 fact checks. We've got partnerships in 11 states. First and foremost, our stories go on our website, but then they are syndicated across the country. I should also mention that we are self-sustaining financially. We are fortunate that we have enough traffic that we can make money off of clicks. We also accept certain grants, and we get money from the Poynter Institute, which is our parent organization, a nonprofit. And we're excited about partnerships we have with Google and Facebook. This is to make fact-checking more prominent in the digital age. Happy to talk about that a little bit more later if people want to ask questions. So here's a look at our workflow at PolitiFact. First, you hear a statement that sounds a little fishy. You decide you're going to put it under review. You reach out to the speaker, you say, "Dear Congresswoman so-and-so, I'm with PolitiFact. I'm looking into the accuracy of this claim you made. Do you have any supporting evidence that you want to send along now? If not, forever hold your peace." Sometimes they get back to us, sometimes not. Usually if they think they're right, they'll send something back. Usually if they know they're wrong, they won't respond at all. So after that, we go out, we find the hard data. These are the government reports, statistics, transcripts. We start to wade into the research. Typically, we reach out to experts. These are people who have dedicated a big chunk of their lives to mastering a certain topic that's under review, researchers, academics. Then we write it up. We try to keep it as conversational as possible because ultimately we want to bring clarity to readers. Goes through the first round of edits, and then 3 editors get together and they debate what rating to put on the claim. So let's talk about those ratings. One end we have true, other end we have pants on fire, which I explained. In between we have some gray areas, mostly true, half true, mostly false, false. I'm going to show you what the finished product looks like so I can really illustrate these ratings with real-life examples. The first comes from Senator Bernie Sanders. You may be familiar with him. He ran for president. He was defeated by Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primaries. His big issue was wealth inequality in the United States. His claim is that the 3 wealthiest people have more wealth than the bottom half of America. He's right, it's true. We looked at the numbers, the 3 richest guys, you can see them on screen here. Bill Gates of Microsoft, 89 billion with a B. Warren Buffett, the investor, Jeff Bezos of Amazon. You total up their wealth, and it comes out to about 3 billion more than if you totaled up all the wealth of the bottom 160 million Americans. So that is a true claim. Next, we have a claim about police marksmanship, the accuracy of police when it comes to shooting their weapons. The quote is, trained police hit their targets less than 30% of the time. Okay, so what Shannon Watts is saying is, for every 10 police bullets that are fired, fewer than 3 of those bullets hit the bad guy. Now, who is Shannon Watts, and why is she talking about this? Good questions. Shannon Watts is a gun control advocate, and in the United States, we have a problem with school shootings. One of the ideas to stop them is to give guns to teachers. Shannon Watts is among the people that think this idea is totally stupid. And to bolster her argument, she's basically claiming, look, if trained police who do this for a living are this bad at shooting, how bad are teachers going to be? It's going to be totally crazy and reckless. The problem is the data is just not that clear. So I looked into statistics for police departments across the country, and there's a kind of grim statistic that's used here. It's called the hit ratio. It's the number of times the bad guys hit divided by the total number of bullets fired. It varies across departments and even within departments, as you can see on the screen. Los Angeles Police Department, it varies across time. So sometimes it's below 30%, like Shannon Watts said. Other times it's been above. We rated that half true because it contains a kernel of truth, leaves out some important details. Last example comes from President Donald Trump. He's talking about immigration policy here. He says, immigrant family separations at the border is the same exact policy as the Obama administration. Why is he talking about the Obama administration's immigration policy? Well, President Trump this year implemented a policy called zero tolerance. This meant that anybody who was crossing the United States southern border with Mexico illegally was prosecuted. Led to a lot of family separations, and as you can imagine, hugely controversial. So President Trump, in an effort to quiet the criticism, said, look, I'm not doing anything different than Barack Obama did. But although there were some family separations under the Obama administration, they were far fewer, and he never had a policy of zero tolerance. So this is just simply not true. What are journalists doing about it? We pioneered a new form of accountability journalism called fact-checking. The question that comes up often, does it work? And this has come up a few times in different talks tonight. I'm going to walk through a few different ways to measure success by looking at impact on other journalists, on politicians, and impact on readers. I think this is one of the untold success stories of fact-checking. Traditional media outlets that did not work in this space have started to adopt our methods. My personal belief, and I know this from working on the presidential debates, is that when journalists are armed with a definitive fact check saying this thing is demonstrably untrue, they feel a lot more confident to push back against falsehoods in real time. So recall the Trump falsehood about his immigration policy being the same as Obama's. After we fact-checked it and others, I think it bolstered confidence among traditional journalists. And I'm going to show you a little video here. This is Donald Trump talking to reporters outside the White House, repeating that same claim.
Sir, for last night, in response to last night's 60 Minutes piece, you said your policy at the border was the same as the Obama administration's. It wasn't. You decided to prosecute.
Say it again, what?
In response to last night's 60
Yeah,
Minutes
so I'll
report,
tell you what. Obama had a separation policy. We all had the same policy.
You did not have
I tried
sir,
to
no,
do
you
it
didn't.
differently, but Obama had a separation policy, but people don't like to talk about
Sir,
that.
it was different. You decided to prosecute everyone at the border.
Okay, and it's not just journalists engaged in Q&A or interviews who are getting in on the action. It's also cable news, the guy who writes the lower third banner. Here on the top left is CNN carrying a live speech where Trump said, I don't like WikiLeaks, and CNN points out in real time, he said he loved it in 2016. MSNBC on the bottom right, carrying a live Trump speech. He repeats a claim that he'd said before about the Obama administration delivering bundles of unfrozen Iranian assets as part of the Iran nuclear deal. Not true, as they point out in the banner. Trump says he watched non-existent video of Iran receiving cash. So Donald Trump's a different kind of politician. Traditionally, politicians, once a talking point was debunked, they would quietly abandon it. There's a funny moment in 2016 when Jeb Bush, who's the brother of George W. Bush, he was running for president, he's making some remarks, he cited a statistic, realized mid-sentence that he screwed up, corrected himself and said, I did that only because I'm going to be PolitiFacted, which we felt good about. Okay, Donald Trump, as you've seen, after something is debunked, he will double down, triple down, quadruple down on it. Does that mean that truth no longer matters in politics? Not necessarily. For one, he is paying a political price for his unorthodox approach to the facts. When Americans have been asked over the years, do you trust the president? A lot more say yes than they do under President Trump. We've also seen studies that show that Donald Trump supporters, when they're presented with fact checks of statements he'd made, they tend to adopt the correction. So this notion that his supporters are unreachable, it's largely a myth. Effect on readers, I don't want to overstate it. It's not a magic bullet, but it has been shown in studies to reduce false beliefs. It also gives people confidence that they can understand politics, which is good. And we know just anecdotally, people like it. We can also see that the popularity in terms of the number of outlets, the explosion of fact-checking outlets around the world, from 44 in 2014 to about 150 now. Here's what that looks like on the map. As you can see, Europe is well represented here. So does fact-checking work here? We're cautiously optimistic that it is having a positive impact. So to bring things full circle to our caveman politician friend here, misinformation has been around forever. It's not going away. But we in journalism like to think that fact-checking is a solid tool for fighting back against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions?